Dinosaurs laid eggs? In fact, they laid a lot of eggs. But even though we've uncovered many dinosaur fossils, eggs are pretty fragile, and the vast majority have either been crushed or decomposed completely. Because of this, we don't know much about their reproduction. It's like how often they laid eggs, or whether they incubated them in nests, or looked after their young. And without that knowledge, it's hard to say what exactly parenting was like for these prehistoric animals. But recently, researchers found a very well-preserved dinosaur egg with embryos inside. So let us dig into this dino doohickey and find out what it has to teach us about dinosaurs and eggs. Eggs are one of the best ways to learn about extinct animals because, unlike bones, they preserve soft tissues like skin. Unfortunately, while eggs are great for learning about the animal that laid them, it's kind of hard to find intact specimens. It's partly because eggshells are made of calcium carbonate, which is chemically similar to limestone, so over time they can weather away like limestone does. Plus, eggs tend to break easily, especially when they're hundreds of millions of years old and being stepped on by giant mammals. So most fossil eggs end up getting smashed. Because of this, we only have a few dozen dinosaur eggs from the entire world, and even those are usually just fossilized imprints left in rock. So it's rare for us to find actual eggs with any detail preserved. Sometimes we do find eggs with embryos still inside, but these are called thin-shelled eggs, which means they wouldn't have stood a chance against an elephant if they were laying around today. The thinnest eggs come from birds, who need to lay them so they don't crack while incubating. But thin-shelled eggs aren't great for preserving in the fossil record. So we haven't found many bird eggs older than about 66 million years, which isn't surprising given that birds exist today. Meanwhile, dinosaur eggs have thicker shells. Like we said, though, even those are pretty delicate. Plus, no one knows how long dinosaurs spent incubating their eggs, or how much parental care they gave their young. So there's a whole range of potential evidence for reproduction that we might miss if all we're looking for are intact eggs. So instead of hunting for intact eggs, some researchers are studying the chemical signatures in rocks where eggs may have been incubated. This approach has revealed behaviors in animals like turtles and crocodilians that we never would have known about otherwise. Like we said, though, intact eggs preserve better than broken ones, and broken eggs preserve better than no eggs at all. So the occasional well-preserved specimen can really advance our understanding. In the 1920s, paleontologists found several dinosaur eggs in the Gobi Desert of Mongolia. At the time, they assumed these were the first dinosaur eggs ever found, but they turned out to be one of the very few thin-shelled eggs from the Cretaceous period. Since then, more discoveries in China and Argentina have revealed that many more species of dinosaurs likely laid thin-shelled eggs. But finding the eggs wasn't enough to tell us how dinosaur reproduction worked. We needed embryos. Enter the embryo. The team behind this new study was excavating the same site in Ganzhou, China, where the famous feathered dinosaur Sinosauropteryx was discovered in 1996. There they found the perfectly preserved skeleton of a large theropod dinosaur, which was exciting. But it was also weird because the dinosaur had been sitting on a clutch of eggs. The weirdness didn't stop there. Not only did they find a bunch of eggs, but they found multiple embryos inside of them, including one in a fairly advanced stage of development. The team needed to carefully clean off decades' worth of sediment to find the fossils. Then, they used a combination of traditional fossil cleaning techniques and CT scans to get a close look at the dino doohickey without damaging it. These scans revealed details like the shape of the eggs, the size of the embryos, and the condition of their skeletons. Not only that, but they also provided chemical information. As the embryos grew, they absorbed nutrients from their surroundings through sacs called coriolantoic membranes, or CAMs for short, and that process left behind chemical signatures in the eggshell membrane. By analyzing the ratios of different forms of carbon and nitrogen in these membranes, the researchers could reconstruct the diet of the adults. It looks like the adults were mostly eating meat. They also analyzed the chemical ratios in the eggshell material itself. Eggshells grow from inside out, so they should reflect the health and nutrition of the dinosaur that laid them. And these results suggested that the adults were living good lives, stress-free and well-nourished. And finally, by looking at growth rings inside the eggshells, they learned that the eggs had been forming for at least 24 months, which is longer than the eggs of modern birds take to make. Once they had all this data, the researchers wanted to see if they could apply it to other dinosaurs. They compared their findings to previous studies of other dinosaur eggs from the same region. The results revealed some differences and some similarities. The eggs the nesting adult had been sitting on belonged to a relative of Ankylosaurus called Boreopelta markmicheli. But the team found chemical evidence of another kind of dinosaur having nested nearby in the past. And that dinosaur was a relative of Ankylosaurus. Now, based on the chemical analysis of their eggs, Ankylosaurs seem to have preferred a more aquatic habitat, while Boreopelta markmicheli preferred the land. But the two species were closely related and lived in the same area, so the researchers think that maybe the aquatic dinosaur evolved from the land-dwelling ancestor after moving to water. It's also possible that this was an isolated case, and that different species from the same group evolved from each other after changing their preferred habitats. It's wild how much information you can get from something that started out as just a jumbled-up pile of dirt. And this discovery doesn't just tell us about ancient eggs. It also helps us understand modern birds. See, birds are the only living relatives of dinosaurs, but they're not descended from any particular group of dinosaurs. Instead, they evolved alongside various dinosaur groups. And since they evolved separately, birds can help us figure out what happened to all those dinosaurs. For example, by comparing the chemistry of dinosaur eggs with modern eggs, we can draw conclusions about their health and diet. And while we compare the chemistry of dinosaur embryos to modern embryos, because they decompose before we can test them, we can look at the structure of fossilized embryos and compare them to modern bird embryos. The bones in the fossilized embryos the team found were too big to belong to baby dinosaurs. This means the embryos must have been fully developed, but not fully hatched. And the team thinks this is because the dinosaur was incubating its eggs when it died. Based on this observation, they concluded that dinosaurs probably incubated their eggs by sitting on them, just like some modern birds do, but that behavior doesn't preserve in the fossil record. So we couldn't say for sure that dinosaurs did anything more than just lay their eggs on the ground. Some researchers think they built nests, like crocodiles do, or that they huddled together in groups to incubate their eggs. But until we find evidence of nest building or huddling behavior, we can't know if they did any of that. And since we haven't found that many eggs in the first place, it's unlikely we'll find evidence of nesting anytime soon. So for now, we'll have to settle for knowing that dinosaurs probably incubated their eggs like birds do. But this isn't the last word on dinosaurs. There are still plenty of questions to answer, like how long did it take them to hatch? Did they take care of their young? And what other weird things can we learn from eggs? With so many undiscovered fossils out there, we're bound to find more answers soon, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching this episode, which was brought to you with the help of our patrons. If you'd like to help us make more videos about dinosaurs and eggs and everything else under the sun, you can go to our support page to learn more.